You cannot keep interrupting. No. I'm having a conversation. No. Walter, I'm right here, baby. That's enough. Stop embarrassing me again. You're getting me in trouble.
Happy Pride Month and welcome to Gayside Stories, where the gay shit goes. I am your host, Trillificent. Thank you so much for joining me for another week. Shout out to all the new subscribers and followers on social media. I see y'all. You're coming through and I appreciate it. So with that being said, listeners, new and old, don't be shy. Go ahead and give feedback. Tweet me about what you hear. Let's make this a more interactive space. Speaking of, remember to use the hashtag GaysidePod when you're live tweeting or posting about the show. So, an announcement about the show, it is no longer going to be updated on SoundCloud. Unless, of course, somebody wants to pay the subscription fee for it. But going forward, no, there won't be any new episodes posted on SoundCloud. I've moved over to a different host. That is Pippa. So I am not going to be updating two different hosts. But with the move to Pippa, the show will still be available on iHeartRadio. So that's new. Welcome over to iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Castbox, Stitcher, Acast, TuneIn, GaysideStories.com/shows, and on YouTube. So there are still plenty of places to listen to the show. And if you use a different type of app that only pulls like the RSS feed and all you need to do is search, such as Overcast, of course, it will still be available there. Last announcement, the hashtag Gayside Culture and audience survey information is all in the show notes. If you guys are interested in contributing to the gay culture series that I have coming up, then that information is in the show notes and also the link to the audience survey. So for this episode, it's a very special episode. It's a supersized episode because it's a little bit longer. It's probably going to be about 2 hours, which is not what I usually do. However, I had two amazing guests in-house and the conversation was great and we just let it flow. It's actually going to be a whole show about podcasts. The reason why I wanted to do this is because I've really been thinking hard on podcasts. I've really been doing an inventory on all the podcasts that I listen to and the things that I've learned. And I thought it would be fun and hopefully educational to put that on this podcast feed. So maybe someone hears it if you're thinking about starting a podcast or if you're retooling or if you just want some honest feedback in general from someone who is, as John would say, an avid podcast listener and also a podcaster himself. Now, with that being said, I am not saying that I have all the answers to podcasting, that I am big shit or anything like that. It's just observations that I've made and hopefully it comes across well and I hope you guys enjoy it. And with all of that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into the show. Enjoy, guys.
I'm broadcasting the voice in. Switch out my throats.
Ow. Say something wrong, baby. Oh, I had this bitch on inside out. Okay. Yeah, I was looking for the strand. Okay, I'm ready. I'm just going to cover these titties up for y'all.
We're not looking at them anyway.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Right. Well, it is Gemini season, and I have two of my favorite Geminis in person, in the flesh. So much brown, beautiful skin, and beautiful smiles, and beautiful cheekbones, and beautiful breastises. Just beautiful. Just beautiful. So, I have on the podcast with me Miss Jackie.
If you nasty.
If you nasty.
Ew.
So, first and foremost, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad that y'all came out to celebrate. I hope that this humid-ass city is treating you well.
Yes, it is.
And I also have Cuban roast in the flesh.
Hey guys. What's going
Cheekbone
on?
John.
You
His
did
cheekbones are
fast
really
food?
popping. I'm like, John is like, look at
Are
John.
you blushing?
He's so cute in person.
Oh my god, you're blushing. You're so fucking cute.
Look at him. He's so
You're so cute. Look
His-
at you. Oh my
look at his
god, I've
eyes
never seen this guy
disappearing.
blush. You are so cute. Come on with your dimples.
Come on. Eyes disappearing. He just huckling and chuckling.
Oh.
Yuck.
Yeah.
What's going on? Can I just say,
first and foremost, congratulations on your 100 episodes.
thank you.
I'm so glad
Thank
to
you.
have you here.
I'm
feel-
so glad to be
I feel
here.
very esteemed to have such an
Thanks.
accomplished podcaster
Oh, hush. Thank
here
you.
in my studio
Yes.
and featuring also in the background. Hey Ray.
What's up?
Hey nigga cat.
Hey, I love niggas.
I love nigga cat.
Rent is due.
Look
I'm gonna
at his
need your
face,
portion.
though.
He's looking like, no,
No,
sir.
nigga.
No, sir, no, sir. So, you guys, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having
Thank you for
me.
having
John,
us.
Jackie of the Jackie and John podcast and the John Effect.
Yay.
Yes.
So we are going to have some fun.
We are.
All right, so let's start off with the School and Life segment. I think we all have the same school and life. And just a quick reminder, this is something that helped you get through the week, maybe something that you were looking forward to. So I'm going to throw it out there. I've been looking forward to you guys being here.
Aww.
So that helped me get through the week. And I was like, my favorite podcast, my brother and sister.
Oh.
Don't make this old bitch cry. Go.
Nettie and Celie coming to visit.
You know what, nigga?
You ain't gonna do it with me? Oh.
You're not gonna drag me in the show because I was about to say something.
But yeah, so that was my school and
love
life.
you.
I was very much looking forward to you guys being here and seeing your beautiful faces in person. It's a different vibe recording in person. So I've been low key jealous that y'all get to record in person whenever we were doing the pod panel. R.I.P. to the pod panel. Bye, girl.
All right. Oh.
Yes, R.I.P. to the pod panel.
Yes, R.I.P. indeed.
Yeah.
Rest in podcast heaven, girl.
Blessings, Toggins.
Yeah. So y'all have a different one, or we all?
I have the Jackie. Go ahead.
It's pretty much the same thing. It was a short week, and I'm looking forward to my birthday.
Right.
And actually getting to spend the weekend with you. And I got to meet 2 new people that I've been dying to meet. So, Curtis and John's best friend, Ray.
Oh, this is your first time meeting Ray.
Yes, this is my first time meeting
Come on, Ray.
Yeah.
Getting out the
Though he comes in town every month, and he never comes to town. I don't see him.
But
So I don't know why you've never.
Because I'm not around.
Right.
You live 10 minutes from me.
No, but I might be gone.
You were in town. Not in town.
John is
Was I in
so-
bed?
No, because it was like 8 o'clock.
I might have been in bed, though. If I'm not out, I'm in
Because you were
bed.
texting me, and I'm just like, why don't you just come out with us? But okay.
Oh, well, was I drinking?
I don't know. I didn't FaceTime him.
Well, fuck it. We met each other now, Ray. Hey, Ray.
Automatic.
Yes.
Yes,
So
come
that
on.
so yeah.
Connecciones. Come on.
So that's what got me through the week, knowing that I was coming to Houston and I get to meet Curtis and record with Curtis, and I met Ray, and yay.
Yay. What about you, Mr.
For
Salvatore?
me, it was, I'm going to be honest, meeting Curtis and recording with Curtis was like the number 1 on my checklist, and then your birthday, so tied for number 1, and just,
I was about to
I haven't
say.
been on it
I didn't.
Okay.
I mean, they run the same. Like
It's just another day.
I was just excited because I see you all the time, and it was just excited to not be at work on a Friday and a Saturday because a nigga be working Fridays and Saturdays till 8 o'clock, and that shit gets in the way. But just coming to Texas and recording and just doing it in person, and because you guys know, I don't know if you guys know, the listeners know, Curtis. And we were on the pod panel together, and we would record remote. So doing this,
Yeah, we get
it's
to
just-
record face to face
It's
with
just
Curtis.
great. It's fun, and I was excited to meet Nigga Cat.
I don't know how he got fans and stands. 'Cause he
I
does.
love
I was like, I get to see
Nothing.
Nigga Cat in person. I get to see
He
Curtis
does
in person.
nothing. At least he's presenting well today.
He is.
Yes.
Nigga cat is on his best behavior.
For now, we'll see.
So he scratched her face out.
Right. Well, when it gets dark, that's when he starts seeing dead people, and he starts climbing up the walls and doing all kinds of crazy shit. And I'm like, I treat him like a child. And it's like, just run around and tire yourself out, and then get your ass in the bed and shut the fuck up. I love you, nigga cat. Sometimes.
He is really looking like a bitch, please.
Actually, now that I think about it, his birthday is coming up. His birthday is
July
July 1st.
Too? Oh, no, he no Gemini.
No, he's not Gemini.
What is it?
Cancer.
Cancer.
His birthday. How old is he gonna be? What year is it?
I want to be 9.
He'll be. No, he'll be 10. Holy shit.
Oh, well.
Yeah, because I got him in 2000. Now, July 1st is not his actual birthday. We just selected it because when we got him, they didn't know when he was born. Because he used to be a country cat.
Oh.
But he acclimated to being inside very quickly.
Look at you.
Yes, you did.
Look at that cat.
Yes, you did. Okay, so let's move on to the next segment, the Come Quick.
I'm gonna come, sir. Oh, yeah!
So I'm very interested to see you guys' thoughts on this.
Okay.
So the article for this week, you guys, is entitled "Gay Porn Actor and Reality TV Star Found Guilty of Revenge Porn." So it's a white guy. He white as hell.
Of course.
His name is his name is Curtis.
Okay. All right then.
Curtis with a K.
Okay.
Curtis Peters Hartman, 22 years old. He's a former alleged gay for pay porn actor on a site called English Lads. I've never heard of that before.
I've never heard of that.
He appeared on MTV show X on the Beach, and I was vaguely familiar with that
I don't even know what that is.
I follow somebody that was on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it looks like they picked a bunch of people and then put them in in a situation, a house, and like, oh, we're gonna go on the beach and have fun, and then surprise, we bringing y'all exes, and I think they met the exes on the beach. I don't know what the rest of the show was about because I was like, this looks dumb. I feel like The Real World or Road Rules. Somebody's already done this. I don't know. Anyway, so what happened was he got into an argument on Twitter with his ex. And he texted his ex that he would post a pic that he would quote unquote ruin her unless she deleted the tweets. I guess she didn't. She did not comply, so he posted a nude photo of said ex that showed her face clearly.
Ooh, mistake number 1, darling.
And it went on to say that he deleted it 2 hours later, etc., etc. So he was convicted of this. The judge gave him a 16-week sentence that was suspended for 18 months, 120 hours of community service, and he had to pay £620 in court fees and £115 to the victim. And he continues to deny the charge, claiming that his phone was hacked.
Okay.
So my question is, how do y'all feel about the rise of revenge porn laws? And do you subscribe to the don't take news if you don't want them broadcast to the world mentality?
Well, me personally, I'm here for the revenge porn laws. You know, maybe it'll keep people in order and be more mindful of what they're doing before they react. Because he pretty much reacted without
like
thinking.
A bitch.
Yeah, he reacted and, you know, and
I mean, I would disagree slightly.
it's okay, you can disagree.
The reason why I say that is because if you text somebody and say, if you don't comply with A, B, and C, then I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, you're not reacting, you're planning.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
So he had every intention on doing that. Had it ready. He had the chopper ready to set the scene, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but he should have known his consequences before he did that. I mean, the laws are pretty clear about revenge porn.
They don't care. They don't care.
Well,
So what do you think? Should people not take nudes because of stuff like this?
oh, absolutely not. Take your news, baby, but
Set them out.
don't have your face up there and don't have any distinctive marks that's on your body showing in the pictures either.
Because everybody has tattoos and this wonderful work. Y'all be looking fine on Instagram. I follow you. And it's like, do you automatically disqualify yourself from ever being able to take nudes just because you want to get tattoos? You know what I mean?
What about?
I got a tattoo, but it got me busted one time. But at the end of the day, anywho, but you just gotta be strategic of how you take the picture.
Okay.
Definitely
what about
no
you?
faces.
What about you, John?
I'm here for them beefing up the revenge porn laws because have some class. Just like if things don't work out, just there's other ways to attack someone instead of, posting your sexual, exchanges like that. That's intimate. I feel those things don't need to be shared. Shoot their mama house up. Throw a brick through their car. Pistol whip them in the parking lot at their job. Do those things. I feel like it's a coward move to...
All of these things you said will still land you in jail.
So, I'm going to pause right here. Okay. And I'm going to say that assault and battery are not condoned on this show. I would suggest that you find a different way to deal with your issues.
Make sure the blood never gets in your hands.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying I'm being facetious, of course. Yeah. There are other ways to approach it, but the porn, people are really, vulnerable when you're in the nude and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's fucked up.
But to the other side of things, you should be able to take nudes. If you want to take nudes, I'm gonna piggyback what Jackie said. Don't put your face. I never put my face in my nudes.
Yes, young Richard Gere.
Fuck you. You don't put your... You just don't. I think that's nudes 101. Don't put your face in the nudes. And don't... If it's a video, don't talk in the video. Because people...
And if it's a video, record from your device so it's coming with you, ladies.
Right.
Take it with... And gentlemen, yeah, take it with you. Take it with you. Then you ain't got to worry about nobody, Or make sure their face is in it, too.
Put them on Front Street.
Yeah.
You have to Olivia Pope the situation.
I'm just saying.
You have to be in front of it. I'm just saying. I mean, if I wanted to be a rude motherfucker, if I wanted to be shady, I could retweet something or save said video and
oh yeah.
But I would never do that. I would never do that.
Okay. I agree. I think that honestly I feel like the sentence could be a little stiffer, or maybe it could be rolled back after a while, but
hit them in their pockets first.
Make some examples out of people. No, throw their asses in jail. Let them feel the consequences of their action because you're violating somebody. And I'm on the fence about the second part. I absolutely feel like you should be able to do whatever the fuck you want to do with your body, with your device, the things that you have paid for, and the thing that you were born with. And honestly, I feel like you should be able to take whatever you want, face in it or not, but being a realist and knowing how the world works, you have to take steps to try to protect yourself.
Right.
But I agree with
De Niro out here.
I agree that it's a gross violation because when you share that with somebody, it's somebody that you trust.
Yeah.
Right.
Even if it's temporarily, because you know how gay boys are. That's a whole different.
You know how we do.
That's different. That's like
this Lamar, I guess I may have this morning.
Yeah, that's like, this is not, I trust you and I want you to see my body. This is an advertisement. But however, I should still be free to be able to advertise in that way and not worry about you putting my shit on Tumblr, talking about, this is my beta account, look what I got. It's like, really? You gonna go through my jack and put all my shit on there?
Right.
You bitch ass?
You bitch you.
So, gay for pay. I don't buy it. I don't want to get into that on this episode. Eventually, I'm gonna talk about it because I have questions and concerns. But
so do I.
We won't do that on this here show. On this show, for the main topic, we're going to talk about podcasts. It's going to be a little bit of a different episode. It's not the usual gay shit and LGBTQ shit and whatever else I come up with. I thought it would be very interesting to talk to John, who has done 100 episodes of his show, and Jackie, who is
Now that I think about it, you're not new to the podcast community.
Oh.
You've been there for a year.
You're established. You're an established podcaster now.
I'm still not used to
You're
it.
a
though.
But
podcaster.
you're a podcaster, but you don't.
Embrace it.
No, well, you don't. You should.
You should, because you're damn good at it.
But you don't do the whole thing the way John and I do. You're still relatively a
Green.
novice.
Green, yeah. Mhm.
You're green.
So I think it would be interesting to have some chats about that from two different points
Oh,
of
I
view.
like that.
And let's see. So let's start off with some basic stuff. So approximately how many podcasts do you guys listen to? Because I think we all are. Oh, John and I know are, as he would say, avid podcast listeners.
Yes.
I listen to a shitload of podcasts.
You probably listen to a little bit more than I do.
Well, I don't listen to everything all the time, but I have a lot of podcasts when I scroll through my Overcast.
Right.
So let's start with Jackie.
I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Would you say more than 10?
Absolutely.
More
Absolutely.
than 20?
Ooh. In a month? No. No way possible. I have a certain...
I don't think you understand the question.
What? More than 20 in... Like
Just
when?
in general.
Oh, yeah. I say more than 20 in general. Yeah. I'm sorry.
In general.
Yeah.
I mean, how many would you listen to? Different podcasts, not episodes of the same one every week.
Oh,
but
okay. I got
different
you.
podcasts. What about you, John?
Definitely under 20. I love... it's under 20. It's definitely under 20. Of course, I have my top 5.
Okay, we'll get to that.
But yeah, I have. It's under 20. It
Okay.
used to be over 20, but I was like, some of y'all suck. I can't watch y'all like that.
Jesus.
I'm good. And a lot of people quit.
True.
So
That's true.
That allowed me, when people were dropping off, it allowed me to pick up new podcasts. And it
Same
was
with
like,
me.
okay.
Same with me. And I told John, I said I want to start, getting more, putting myself out there in the podcast community. So I've been just listening to different podcasts that you don't even know about, that I listen to.
Well, I know about them. I just don't listen
Well,
to them.
you see me tweet them and,
Oh, yeah,
all that
right,
stuff.
okay.
So I'll pick like one or two random podcasts and listen to them. And if I like it, I'll come back and listen to them again. So, but like John said, we have our ones that we definitely got.
Okay,
in
we'll get to that.
rotation.
That's the next
Yeah.
question. For me, I probably do listen to more than 20. I used to have like my core that I would listen to, but I've been trying to branch out more. Like the more John and I have been friends and other
We're
people
friends.
have been.
I'm excited.
I hate you.
What? Let me relish in small things.
Okay, relish.
But now I've gotten to the point where I have my ones that I listen to every week, and the rest of them I kind of pick and choose. Like if it's a topic that I'm not comfortable with the hosts talking about, I may skip it.
Right.
Or if I'm just not interested in the topic, or if you're talking about Kanye and I've already listened to 4 other podcasts talk about Kanye,
Okay.
I may skip that week.
Right.
And then the next week, if you talk about something different, I may listen to you before I listen to the other ones that I listened to that
Makes
week.
sense.
And I just been picking and choosing. Like there are some that I've kind of taken a break on to get something freshness, and there are some that I just pick and choose. Like I'm like, well, let me look at the show notes. Ooh, I'm not interested in that.
Like, this week
I'll
I'm
catch
listening-
y'all next week.
This week I don't need to listen to award-winning podcasts. I'll just listen to
Oh,
regular
oh.
podcasts.
Yeah.
So next question: what 3 podcasts, you have to pick 3, do you make sure you listen to every week? I'm gonna say there's probably more than 3, but name 3, and then we can assume that there's probably a few more that you listen to every week. But the 3 that you want to mention here, and we'll go with John first.
Baby Boy podcast, of course. The Officially Street podcast, and Gayside Stories.
Whoop whoop.
Yeah.
Okay, what about you, Jackie?
The Baby Boy podcast.
Shout out to the baby boys.
We love you guys.
The Johnny Fett
Oh, thank you.
and the Drunken Knights.
Okay. Every week I listen to The Read.
Love the read.
I listen to The Outline with Kevin Dwayne.
Joe Fines.
Hey, Kevin.
Anyway. And The John Effect.
Thank you. I love that you
Listen,
guys.
I'll be refreshing my stuff like John. You old bitch ass. You didn't do no episodes.
You too?
Yo, okay.
No.
On Monday, I'm like, I need to download my shit And John be bullshitting sometimes.
For the most part, guys, I've been on point.
You know, you've been consistent. It's just, shit happens. I know, life
I
happens.
was like,
It's just that, when you want to hear it.
yes.
When you want to hear it.
I be waiting for that tag on the tweet, and I was like, he ain't tagged nobody, ain't tagged me yet. Remember
like,
I hit you up, and you was real shady that week. You dropped it, didn't tag nobody, and I hit you up. I was like, John, when you dropping? You was like, I already dropped. I was like, I had to go, and then when I went into his Twitter and looked on the link, I said, oh yeah, he did. You was real sneaky with your drop that week.
Because sometimes my internet be fucking up and it be like, I just want this to drop at 7:30, but no, SoundCloud want to be like, nah, bro, you not, no.
Okay.
And
Sister Mary SoundCloud.
I'm like, I'm just gonna fuck it. I'm just gonna drop one and get off.
I had to do that once, so I understand.
That shit is in the fucking way.
I understand.
I'm gonna let you rock.
So, Jackie, your presentation just now actually will launch us into the next question, because it sounds like you are waiting for alerts so that you know podcasts are available. So my next question is, what applications do y'all use to listen to podcasts?
SoundCloud.
You use on your phone?
Yeah, on my phone. SoundCloud on the phone. Or
Hello.
Carlos got your ass.
Was that shade?
Not to
shit if
you.
it's true.
That's SoundCloud shade. That app is trash.
But,
iOS is trash.
No, SoundCloud. Then I have an iPhone now, so they got the app up here called Podcast.
Okay,
so,
the Apple Podcast.
Yeah,
the
so
purple app.
I'll listen from there as well. And I don't know. Sometimes I used to go listen from YouTube, but some of the podcasters don't. Well, some of them still do upload to YouTube, so it just depends. Because I got a YouTube channel, so I try to go and support their platforms too from my YouTube channel. Well, if you're not,
well, no,
it would make sense for me, you know.
Yeah, for you, I just don't.
And then,
because YouTube, you gotta have it open. You gotta keep the app open.
And then, if they actually have a website, some people upload it on their website too. So that's how I listen.
I do that too. It doesn't blast. Anyway, John, what about you?
I'm in the ghetto. I use SoundCloud, and I use Apple Podcasts, and I like to sometimes, if I remember, to listen to it on my Android tablet. That way I can comment and do more stuff. But those three places, I don't listen to it on YouTube. I know I'm on Stitcher, but I don't use Stitcher.
Me either.
And I've heard of Overcast and Acast, but I don't use them.
Yeah, I use Overcast.
Is it an app you can download?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not.
Just the app you download and you search for your podcast. So I have podcast. It doesn't matter where the podcast is being hosted. In Overcast, it all comes. I mean, it's the same as Apple Podcast. It's just I don't like the updates that they did to Apple Podcast. Now I still have it so that I can check like if I get reviews and stuff like that. But I haven't used that app to listen to a podcast in a long time. I use Overcast, and Overcast you can make an account and it will sync across different devices. Sorry.
Okay.
So like if I'm listening on my phone,
Let me download that real quick.
and then I switch over, it'll sync to
really?
my tablet.
To your tablet.
And if sometimes it's a little janky, but usually it will sync to the same place too.
Okay.
So if I'm listening to a podcast and then I forget that I was listening to it and I go back to it, maybe on my tablet because I usually use my tablet, I can just hit play and it'll play from where I was.
I like that.
So whatever app is the best, but whatever you prefer. It's just because I was a hardcore Apple Podcast user, and then I want to say, what was it? Was it iOS 11?
11 fucked it up.
They did all that card bullshit, and I was like, you can eat my ass with ketchup. I do not like this shit.
An organic ketchup, I hope. But
only the best for my booty.
Ooh.
So let's get into some different things. I want to talk about tips and tricks. So I have some that I listed out, and I'm curious to see what you guys have come up with. So the first tip and or trick that I have is, and a lot of this is more looking from the standpoint of things that I've learned. So it would be advice for someone that's starting a podcast.
Okay.
So my first tip is to look into podcast hosting sites prior to starting your podcast. A lot of people default to SoundCloud because it's easy. A lot of people use it and everything, but when you really start getting into it, you realize that SoundCloud has its limitations.
Right.
And there are other hosting sites that will give you a little bit more. So just look into it and do what's best for you. I'm not saying SoundCloud is bad and don't use it.
Right.
If SoundCloud makes the most sense for you, then sign your ass up. I'm just saying know that there are other options. Because at the time, I didn't know that there were other options. Like, it didn't even occur to me that someone else would let me do the same thing. And they would have additional benefits. Because SoundCloud is... It's a little slim on the features.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, a little minuscule on some things that now, after a year that I've been doing the show, things that now I know to look for. Versus when I started, I was just trying to get it out there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So my advice would be know that in your gusto to get your show out there, take some time to look around and see what other hosting sites are available.
Okay.
You guys have anything you want to chime in?
Jackie.
Tip or a trick that you...
Tips and tricks for podcasting. Like I'm still a novice, so
You are.
my tip is to find a mentor.
Oh, that's a good one.
You know, that
I
somebody
live
some
by mentor, so I know I get it.
yeah.
Hi, drama.
Hey, drama.
Find a mentor that's open and willing to help you and give you great advice. Because there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people out there that don't have a door or window for people because they too worried about, is this person gonna do better than me or outshine me and all that stuff. So,
Bye.
but yeah,
TV
so
spicy.
that would be the main tip I would say. Find
Okay.
a
What
get a
about you,
mentor.
John? I have a lot more, but I want to make sure.
I have
that
a
you
few
guys-
tips.
Okay.
For SoundCloud users, use your Spotlight. My tip to you is to use your Spotlight. List your most recent episodes, like your most recent 5 episodes, so that people can kind of get an understanding, so they can play it backwards. Because a lot of times we don't do things in chronological order when it comes to podcasting, because they're not. You can miss this episode and still get the gist of the show. Another thing I've done sometimes is having the first episode within the Spotlight so people can see a little bit of the growth, or you can see, hey, this is episode 1 and this is episode 40, and kind of see that growth. Also, engaging with social media. I feel like you have to engage with social media, because especially when you're a grassroots podcast, you don't have the benefit of having this big machine behind you, so you have to interact and you have to network, because none of us are just, I don't have to interact with you and I'm just gonna be the shit. Those are some of my tips and tricks.
Okay. I have a few more. So I would say another tip for when you're starting or looking to starting one, look into branding early and try to secure the social media and the website names as early as possible. That way you're not kind of like piecemealing it. I mean, do what you have to do, but I'm just saying if you put some thought into it before, then maybe you'll be able to get the same name on all of your different platforms. Because that's what I did. I was like, what can I do that's unique?
Right.
And then I was like, look, hey, Google, hey, sis. And I put it in, like, there are websites where you can put in what you want the at name to be, and it'll check virtually everywhere.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Email, Twitter, Venmo, like literally everything. And that's what I did before I started. Because I didn't want, this is no slight to any other podcast. It's just I am very particular about how I want my podcast.
Right. I'm the same.
And I was like, I want just the show name.
Right.
So I had to come up with the show name that was unique, so that when I put it into Gmail, it was like, yes, you can have this. When I go to Twitter, it's like, oh, it's the same thing. You can have this.
I wish I
Instagram,
thought
it's the
like
same
you.
thing. But I'm very, there are certain things that I'm very particular about. I wanted it to present in a certain way.
Right.
You were ready. You were prepared, because let me tell you, when I was doing it, I had a working title, and then it stumbled into the show, because I was just like, I don't know what to call this shit. I wasn't thinking like that. I just jumped out there and like,
Let me ask you a
see what
question.
sticks. What's the question?
Do you own your domain?
I don't.
How many times I've had that conversation with you?
You have, but
Even if you don't use it.
I don't understand technology. I don't.
No.
HTML script.
It call-
I don't
you
understand
can-
shit.
So I would double back to Jackie's tip, and I would advise John to get a technological mentor. to help you with those things.
Okay.
It's not difficult, but I
not.
get it.
You
John is a little bit of a troglodyte, so
I just was like, this is fun.
Curtis has a website. I have a website. You could ask any one of us, how do we do that? You know, how do we get the domain or whatever? And you don't even have to actually build a website and post anything on it, but own your domain, because I keep telling you, if you blow up, the Johnny Effect blows up. There's people out there that's paying attention, and they be like, oh, his domain is available.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy it. And then all of a sudden you want to be thejohnnyeffect.com. You go to try to buy it, you try to get it, it's already sold. This person's gonna be like, oh, I'll sell it to you for $20,000.
No, fuck you won't.
I'm just this, but
you
this.
won't. I'm going on
She's
tour.
right.
But this is how these people operate. I'm
Oh.
telling you that. This is how these
I
people
think I
operate.
read something like that. Somebody
Yeah,
had to buy the
so
domain.
trust and believe.
they will.
Then I think Freshly that. Okay.
Anything
I'm
for a
sure.
scam. Okay, so my next tip is for people to know that it takes a little bit of time to get your podcast onto Apple Podcasts and Google Play Music and some of the other ones, like SoundCloud, like the actual host. You can get your podcast on immediately. But Apple Podcasts, there's a process. Google Play Music, there's a process. iHeartRadio, all of those different platforms, it's a process. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're planning your launch. So one of y'all mentioned Freshalina. Shout out to her because she did this guide, and I think it was called Launch the Damn Podcast, which I did buy, and I flipped through it. I got some ideas from it. And one of her tips was, when you launch, do it with like 3 episodes so people can listen and get a feel for it. Oh. And when I did that, I discovered, it takes time to get on Apple Podcasts, and it worked because we hadn't recorded all 3 of the episodes. So I went ahead and sent the first one and got that approval going. The same thing with Google Play, so that by the time we dropped our 3 episodes and started telling people, they were available on all the big platforms.
I didn't know that. Okay. I feel like Google Play takes longer than Apple Podcasts, and then I'm like,
it takes a little.
Nobody
time.
listens to Google Play podcast. I know one person on Twitter.
No, there's people.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people, but there's people. I've had people hit me up like, "What's the Google Play link?" It's people. They're out there. But the thing about it is, even if you think nobody's listening or it's going to be one person, you just never know. So like. We'll get into that in a bit. Okay. My next tip is to research what microphones and what recording programs are known to work well with your specific setup. So if you got a Lenovo, whatever the hell computer, look into what works. See what other people say about microphones, etc. Everybody has a Lenovo.
Like, do they? Because I was like, I ain't big on stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm just saying, because the reason why I say that is because, so I don't know if I've said this before on this podcast, but you guys are sitting here, you can see I use regular as Blue Snowball microphones. And I didn't do any research. I was like, I don't have no job. I have a limited amount of money.
Right.
So, Sister Mary Amazon, what you got?
What you got for me?
And Amazon said, hey sis, we got these for $40. And I said, I can do that. I don't have to sell no ass to get these.
Oh, okay.
But I saw a lot of people, when I started getting into the podcast community, which shout out to John because he kind of pulled me into it. He was like one of the first. I was like, another podcast reaching out to me? What is this?
That's just how I am.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. Like and that's going to be one of my tips. But I never imagined other podcasts being like, I'm listening. I fuck with you. I'm gonna retweet your stuff, and here's these other shows, and this is this thing that I do. But that a lot of people were saying that these microphones, they suck. The sound quality.
John said, "Don't." He said, "Do not get that." I said, "Okay."
Etc. Etc. But I think it all depends on your setup because anyone who listens to my show, like I'm very particular about my show. I make a lot of allowances for other people's show. Like your sound has to be complete garbage. It has to sound like the microphone is up under your ass and you scratching for me to not listen to your show if I like it. Okay. But for my show, I'm like the audio needs to be on point. And I've got compliments on my audio on this show, and I'm like, I just use a regular Snowball Blue mic, and that's what made me think it must be the setup. Like maybe Blue microphones, they don't work well with Windows laptops or specific Windows laptops.
Right.
But I use a MacBook, and I don't have any problem.
You have great sound.
It may also be the program. It may be that the microphone doesn't play well with the program.
What program do you use?
I use GarageBand when I'm by myself or in person. Hey y'all.
Hey, friend. That's our friend.
Super niggas.
Hey, I like that.
Or I use Skype if it's remote. And it just, but even that, like Skype works different probably on a MacBook than it does on a tablet versus
Skype
a Windows versus a phone. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm just saying, do a little research. That may be something to look into. So my next tip is, and I have this in all caps because it's VV important. Understand that podcasting is not free.
It's not.
It costs money.
I had to sell some dick to get.
You have to sell things. You have to do
My
things
body. I
that
had
you
to sell
don't
my
want
body.
to do. No, bullshit. Anyway,
I
but
ain't had to sell this dick.
You on Richard Gere?
well, I mean, you have a lot to do. Anyway, the truth of the matter is, podcasting it costs money. So it like SoundCloud. You jump to SoundCloud, but they want $15 a month once you go over 3 hours.
I did not know that when I first started. I was like,
Yeah.
When
And you don't realize that.
$15, okay.
They like, thanks, sis. Oh, you hit your limit. Give us money.
Uh-huh.
And it's every month. You want to do a website, you got to buy a domain. And usually whoever hosts your website, they want some change every month too.
Or, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, other thing, like equipment costs money. Unless you just got the hookup.
Yeah.
What else costs money? If you
Show art, if you have
if you go outside and you get someone to do show art for you, that costs, like, everything costs money. If you get somebody to do music for you and they're not doing, if you're not having someone do you a favor, like, all of that stuff. But the main thing is, in order to get your podcast where people can listen to it on their devices, it's going to cost money. If you don't do anything else, if you just do the bare minimum to get it out there, it's still going to cost you at least $15 a month. Because SoundCloud is like, where are our coins? Okay? Libsyn, Pippa, whatever you use, they want their money.
Immediately.
So my next one is and this is, again, because I'm so particular about how I do my show, develop a template or an outline that you can use from week to week so you can copy information that doesn't change.
Right.
So if you do your intro a certain way, just type it out once and then copy it from week to week. That way you don't have to redo it. You don't have to think about, what do I say? Oh, wait, it's already here.
Right.
You know, the stuff that's the same, you can copy from week to week.
You know, because you record, I will forget how the show.
No, you be thinking you were recording a different show.
There are sometimes I have to, when I do my own show, I'm like, let me go back and play last week's episode to see how I did the intro.
Oh, yeah,
People think I
yeah,
just,
yeah.
sometimes I remember it, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And Charnel's like, I just assumed that you just had it memorized. For the most part, sometimes, but I'm like, what show am I doing? Am I doing the pop panel? Am I doing the Jonathan?
New listeners, welcome.
Welcome.
Returning listeners, welcome back.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can listen to any.
Y'all some niggas.
We listen every week. We know the shtick, okay?
Oh, man.
And we love it.
Oh, we love it, John.
We love
I
it.
was like, oh, God.
Okay, so let's get into some podcast do's. Like, what should you be doing when you do your podcast? And again, I'll kick it off. So my first one is market your podcast to a few people prior to official launch to get feedback. And I think this might have been in Fresh Alina's guide, because I had never thought of, I mean, I was going to do that anyway, but to do it officially. So when I started this podcast with my ex-co-host, that was what we did. So we did episodes and we had them private on SoundCloud. It gives you a specific link, and we would send the link to people, say, hey, listen to this and give us your feedback. So we did maybe 3 to 4 episodes before we did the actual official first one, because we were trying to play around with how do we play off of each. I mean, because it was, another thing was, when you have a co-host, how do we play off of each other? We may not know until we actually start recording what segments work, what segments don't work, what what format works. Maybe we need to do a whole different format.
Right.
Because you may not know. You may do all that work and be like, this is the format. It's gonna be lit. And then you record it and you listen to it and you be like, this boo boo as hell. Or you may think it's lit, and then you send it out to some people and they're like, no, beloved.
What you doing?
And I would say, I would add to that, make sure you, if you're going to do that and send it to people, make sure you send it to people that will be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing worse than you doing something creative and you think it's good and it's not.
Right.
Or it needs to be tweaked and you don't get that feedback. Now, I'm not saying that you should let people dictate how you do your creative thing, but part of the whole thing of being creative is that you want to feed the masses, or even if it's just a sliver. You may not want to be feeding Beyonce level masses. Maybe you just want to just have a little Tinashe sliver.
Oh my God, I love the Tinashe. I was like,
that's why I was looking.
Yeah,
we be here.
We be here a lot. Tinashe.
Gemini powers.
Activate.
But yeah, so I would say, get some feedback on your show, and because it may help you. Someone may have an idea, be like, oh, why don't you talk about this? Or instead of doing this, why don't you do this? And it may be something that you never thought of.
Right.
And then next thing you know, you send it to someone and they give you something good. So I'm going to throw it to you guys and see what's one of your podcast dues or...
One of my podcast dudes is listen to your own podcast.
Oh,
people don't do that.
That's good.
And I'm just like,
Payless said he does not listen to his own show.
So he on the only time. Well, I'm gonna assume the only time he listens when he edits. But I get that. Obviously, you're gonna listen when you edit, but you're piecing it together, you're chopping it up, and you're putting it together. But I'm just saying, once you drop it, listen to your own podcast. Do you listen to your podcast, Curtis?
I want to be honest. I don't listen to it once I do, but the thing about it is, and I kind of feel that person when he said that. I did hear that. I don't know where I heard that. Maybe I did listen to that whole episode. Anyway,
no, I think he tweeted it.
No, because I don't. Anyway,
sorry.
My bad. But I think it depends on your ear when you're editing. Because if you're listening to make sure the show sounds good, then you'll listen to it from a listener's standpoint, and you'll edit where you don't, because it doesn't sound right, or because you hear something you don't like, or because a glass fell off the table and it fucked up the sound. Versus some people, I'm gonna be honest, sometimes I be lazy trash. And I only listen to the points where I need to make insertions.
Right.
And the rest of it, I just let it rock.
That's what I do. I listen for it.
But the other thing that you have to be mindful of, or the thing that I learned about myself in doing this, is that while you're doing it, you need to be listening. Because if you're not paying attention while you're recording, especially if you're recording with other people, but even if you're recording by yourself, then you're not going to catch that it might be off. You know what I mean? Like, case in point, when I did the episode with the three guys and we were all together talking, I'm immersed in the conversation the same way I am with you guys. Right. But I'm also listening to make sure that the show is doing what I want it to do. Right. And if it gets off track, like I brought up one thing and we got off track, and I was like, let's get back on track. Y'all focusing on the wrong thing. Let's get back on track.
I have to do that with this one. I have to do that.
And it's natural because especially when you're recording with your friend,
I have to rope you in a lot. I love you, but
why? Because I be going to the left field.
I be like, Jackie.
But that's the thing.
Curtis is recording with us. He knows. I'm like, we gotta get back on task.
Tell a story.
We'll get into more of that stuff in a little bit, but that was one of my. I'm just gonna say, you don't necessarily have to listen. Now, if you don't do any type of editing, you just hit record and you post it. Yes, you should absolutely be listening to your show to make sure that it don't sound like hot flaming garbage.
Right. Yeah, but what if, not even just about the sound quality, but what if you get a listener who comments or tweets something and...
But that's what I'm saying.
You didn't even listen. You're like, what are you talking about?
It depends on the person.
Okay.
Like, if somebody said, like, when I do my show and when I edit it, there are certain places where I hear something and I'm like, okay, this might be a place where someone's going to say something.
Okay.
Like, in that same episode with those guys, when that dude was like, I like Trump's policies. I knew someone was gonna have something to say about that. I filed that.
Nigga, I was like, okay.
But that's the thing. It's the thing about, and that's we'll get into a little bit more. I don't want to get into it right now, but you'll see where I'm coming from later in this conversation, which is very good. We're on track.
Staying on task.
We're on task. Nigga Cat is not over there doing niggy things. Ray's over there in his own world. Hey, Ray. Okay, Jackie, you have any other podcast dues?
Network. Reach out.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, just networking. Everything that goes along with networking.
Basically, do what John does.
Oh,
Yeah.
hush. Anyways.
Okay, John. What
my first thing I want to say for this piece is be authentic. Be yourself. Don't be a character of yourself. I know this is a podcast and you want to be entertaining, but there's a way to channel it and be as authentic as possible. The next one is be humble. Humility will take you places. We don't want to hear that you're an award-winning podcast if there's no award. We don't want to hear you're on tour because you have paid time off and you have a rental car for the weekend or you have a megabus ticket. Have some humility. Have grace. Like, it's just, you just don't... those are my things. Those are my two big things. Be humble. Be yourself. Have fun. Don't take yourself too serious. That's a big do for me. Don't take yourself too serious. Just be yourself. Have fun. You're not getting a paycheck for this, and if you are, it's not going to give you a sizable disposable income. So that's what I have.
And that, listeners, is what I like to call shade vomit.
That is not shade.
Oh, it absolutely is. Absolutely, but it's fine. It's fine. You have any other?
That's all I have.
Okay. One of my other podcast dudes is to make sure that you show love to the people that help you with your show. And when I say that, I mean friends that you bounce ideas off of. Maybe if you have someone that helps you with your editing, or if you get ideas from someone, whatever it may be, anybody that helps you get that podcast out, make sure that you show them love. You know, don't be out here taking from people and not giving them credit.
Yeah.
Another one is to make sure that you appreciate your audience.
Yes.
Because what's the point of you doing the podcast if no one's listening, or if people are listening but you're not acknowledging them? So make sure that you acknowledge and appreciate your audience. Another podcast dude, and this is just something that I recently realized, which is when I started shuffling podcasts, because I was like, some things that I just... Anyway, is designate a quote-unquote moderator type if your podcast has more than 2 hosts to help keep the conversation moving. A lot of times, a lot of podcasts... First of all, let me say this. There's enough grits out here for everybody to eat. Okay?
Grits make you gay, according to John Dupree.
Okay.
The internet.
All right. Well, that's why we shit unicorn glitter. But yeah, there's enough grits out here for everybody to eat. So don't feel like if you have an idea or if you just want to do a podcast that you can't. However, you have to be mindful. It is a saturated market. There's a shitload of podcasts out there. It's just, let's be honest. You know, you have to be honest with yourself. Are you really presenting something that's unique? Or do you just want to do it to have fun? Which is okay, too. If you're doing the same kind of podcast as a lot of, like, you know, we can use pop culture as an example, because a lot of people, they feel like I got something to say about pop culture, and that's fine. But you also have to understand that in order to get your podcast to the next level, you have to be offering something unique in what you talk about if it's about pop culture.
Right.
Now, if you're just doing it to have fun with your friend, sometimes you stumble across stuff, you know? Like, I feel like I wasn't there from inception with Baby Boys, but I feel like they just kind of stumbled on something that was unique and people liked it.
They did.
But if you just sitting up with your friend and like, hey, girl, and your girl's like, hey, girl, and y'all like, let's get some wine and let's just talk about what happened this week. What's unique about that? What's going to make me as a listener? And again, this is not me throwing shade as a podcaster. Again, I scroll through my Overcast And in there, at some point, I've listened to over 50 podcasts. Like, I listen to a shitload of podcasts.
Right.
Y'all get me through the work week. I don't work with that. Anyway, I don't want to get into my personal.
Okay.
But be mindful of that. So if you have 3 hosts, if you have 4 hosts, like if y'all are not all natural conversationalists, because that is a thing. There are some people that just know how to have a conversation, keep it going, not talk over people, etc., etc. Then somebody has to be the driver. Somebody has to power through the different segments. Someone has to power through the conversation, make sure y'all are on point, y'all stay on track. So I just, in my experience from listening podcasts, like if they have 3 hosts, if there's one person that kind of leads the show, it works better than if it's just kind of like a free fall.
I'm just saying because you had tweeted something that I don't let you guys drive.
You didn't.
Nigga.
I told you that in our message.
But I was.
But the reason why, but it works because when you have that many personalities, you have to have structure.
I was talking about editing and.
I don't edit.
Okay, go. Anywho, the pod panel's done, so it doesn't
Mom
matter.
and Dad. I hate it when you fight. Y'all are fighting. Buy me ice cream.
You got it, kiddo.
And my last podcast dude that I can think of, and there's probably a ton more, but is, and this is again from the starting a show standpoint, or even if you're retooling, because a lot of people do that. A lot of people they do so many episodes and then they like, I don't like this format no more. We're gonna retool. Have a clear idea of what you want your show to be and what you want your listeners to take from it. So I was having a conversation with someone that's like, yeah, we're going to start a podcast. And my first question was, why? Like, what is your podcast going to be about? He told me what the podcast was going to be about. I said, okay, so if I listen to this show, what do you want me to take from it? He had to think about it. And he's like, this is what I want you to take from it. I said, okay, now how are you going to present it so that I take what you want me to take from the show?
Right.
And he was looking like, I was like, yeah, just something to think about. Again, it's no shade, but a lot of people feel like you could just get in front of the mic and start talking. There's a very limited amount of people that can do that. I won't say that some people have that natural talent, but for the rest of us, myself included, like I had to have a plan. Because if I just get in front of me and the microphone looking at each other, I'm like, bitches, you gonna talk? And the microphone's like, bitches, you gonna talk? And I'm like...
Nigga cat looking like, is you gonna talk?
Right.
I ain't talking, I'm a bird.
So it's very, very important. Okay, so let's get into the next part of this conversation.
Okay.
Podcast don'ts. And I'm actually going to throw it to John first. Because I like to switch it up. Because I know you like to do things a certain way. And I'm not going to let you do that on this show.
I would never.
I determine who going to answer the questions when. So you go first. Thank you very much.
I'm speaking from an established standpoint. So, big pet peeve, eating on the mic.
Ooh.
Is
no. Let's stay with the don'ts.
No, we're not doing pet peeves. We're doing don'ts.
Pet peeves
don't.
are the next
Okay.
one.
Don't skip the pet peeves. Go.
Don't ignore your audience. Like you acknowledge, like Curtis said, you have to acknowledge them. Another don't think you're bigger than what you are. Everyone has grand aspirations of being the Reed or the Brilliant Idiots or Jesus and Nero.
I have lowered expectations.
And just just don't.
Okay.
Just don't.
What about you, Jackie?
Let's see. Some things that I've seen or noticed. If you're collaborating with a podcast
It has to make sense.
and you're promoting the collaboration, if you're the guest on their show, don't overshadow their logos and
Jesus
their name
Christ.
with your face or your own podcast name. Like it's that's not your show. You're the guest, so it's gonna be whatever and me. But I'm not gonna I'm not gonna overshadow myself on the show that I was a guest on. I think that's a big don't. What you think?
Pepper emoji.
want to overshadow the. That's like the Reed had somebody on this show, and that guest overshadows the Reed's logo and name and everything. Rude.
Okay.
I don't disagree.
I don't disagree.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. Any others?
Any other don'ts?
Don't collaborate if it doesn't make sense.
But what if it makes sense to them?
I don't know. That's fair too.
I always feel a way when John says that because I'm like, I can't remember. But
well, you're versatile and you're engaging and you're an entertaining podcast. You're not dull as dishwater. So collaborations have to make sense. Like there are people that I really fuck with that I'm just like, I don't know if that's gonna work podcast wise.
Yeah. I mean, especially when your podcast has a specific format. Like for John, I know that what he says, I understand where you're coming from because you can't just throw anybody into the mix with the format of your show. Whereas my show,
you can.
I can because I can tailor the conversation. I can tailor it just like this. Like I tailored it specifically to have this conversation with you two because I had an idea of what I wanted out of it. So that's why I presented it the way that I did. So yeah, that makes sense. And I get it, sometimes we want to... And that was actually one of the podcast dudes that I forgot about was, you know how they say network on your level? It's the same thing in podcasting. Like, network on your level. Other grassroots, independent, whatever we call ourselves. Other like, don't just try to reach out to the Brilliant Idiots and the Reeds.
Or Faith Evans.
Where did that come from? You know what? So my podcast don'ts because that's John. I don't. John.
I'm just saying.
So my first don't is do not copy another show's format to the letter.
Hello.
Like, that's just trash and tacky. Like it could be multiple podcasts that talk about pop culture. I mean, y'all can do it differently. You don't have to take the format of another show. Like and be cognizant of that kind of stuff. Right. And I'm saying that as a listener because I'm used to my established podcasts like The Read. So if I hear another show that's like we're going to do listener letters, I'm expecting it to be presented differently. I'm not expecting you to do the same thing that The Read does. Not saying that you can't do it, but if you're doing exactly what they're doing, then I can just listen to them. Like make it stand out so I can be like, I want to hear, like there's a podcast that I listen to called POC, Podcast of Color. Okay, they do listener letters towards the end, but it's such a different feel. Or even what's another podcast? Not Random Tandem.
No shit. Sherlock does listener
They
letters.
do them,
and Jamie
Drinking
used
Partners
to do.
does it. Drinking Partners do it. They do an email thing.
Here we go. Different example. You know, the Friend Zone. They do a different version of it. They, everybody has a different version of it. It's the same thing as when you strip
Put your own stamp on it.
But it's from your own standpoint. It's not just flat out. And it could even be the order. Like if you do it the same order as another podcast, it's gonna come off as a little stale. No matter how engaging, no matter how entertaining it is, it just comes across as a little stale because it's the same order. So if I say I'm gonna do pop culture, I'm going to do a listener letter, and then we're going to have like some general at the end. That's the general format of a lot of podcasts. So if I'm going to do that, I might switch it up and be like, you know what? We're going to start with the listener letters. I know some shit in that Gmail inbox. We're going to start with that. We're going to kick it off proper. And then we'll get into the other. You know what I mean? Just be cognizant of that kind of stuff, how it comes across to the listener.
Can I do it real quick? It's funny you say that because you're speaking now, and it just hit me. I was like, "Bitch, what is kind of like the read," and I didn't put two and two together when
I don't know. I don't listen to the Read.
That's another podcast, dude. But we've already established that we listen to a lot of podcasts.
I was just like,
but not everything is for everybody.
I didn't think that's kind of a lot like their Read. I was like, oh, and I didn't even think about it when I did it. I'm just like.
But it's a whole different thing. It's a different name. It's a different point of view.
Okay.
Just because even it could just be that you read things differently
than the read, because y'all don't go in on things the same way as Kid Fury and Chris.
Yeah.
You have your own personality, and this is no shade, none at all. I love us for real, and I even struggle with this with myself, and people reassure me, and I'd be like, "Girl, please," but you have to know how to get your personality out and onto that microphone. I'm not gonna say that people don't have personality, but
some don't.
Sometimes the personality that you have, it doesn't necessarily. It doesn't. What's the word?
Relate.
It doesn't come across the same as when you do it on a show. So you have to be mindful of that. Like, you have to, like, for me, I know that my voice can be a little deadpan sometimes, so I have to.
I love that though.
I have to be, and it works at certain points, but the whole show can't. Like, I have to be. I had to learn, because the early episodes, I was like, do I even want to be here?
I'll be one of them.
I love the tone of your voice and your delivery. But
that was something that I had to work on.
Okay.
I had to, because I was very cognizant. I was like, I have to breathe a little life into it. Like, when I'm having a regular conversation with one of y'all on the phone, I don't have to do that. Now, I may do that depending on what we're doing. The TV scalding. Right. But
because like me and Curtis be having some conversations like on the phone, like, okay,
we be here.
We be here on them conversations.
Okay, the ojos be here.
I be like, okay.
So, another podcast that I have is, don't be unnecessarily negative or shady towards other podcasters. Like, for the most part, concentrate on your own show. And what I say, because I know that people probably like, somebody in here right now is like, But when I say that, I mean, if there's something that needs to be addressed, then absolutely address it. Everybody grown.
Right.
But don't get to the point where talking about other shows or being shady towards other shows or whatever the case may be becomes a staple of your show.
Right. I get it.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to listen personally. I don't want to listen to a podcast where all they do is talk about other podcasts, unless it's Podcasts in Colors, because that podcast is a podcast about podcasts, so it makes sense. But if I'm used to you talking about pop culture, and then y'all have your sexcapades from the past week, and then all of a sudden,
I wish I was having sex.
You're always talking about another podcast, I'm gonna be like, what is the truth? What's really going on? You know what I mean? But I say that because I don't speak for myself. Like, I don't like to inject negativity onto the show, because something that I've learned when I really started analyzing, which that's a poor choice of words. When I really started listening deeply to podcasts, I realized that whatever you have going on, whatever you're feeling, it comes across on the mic. If you don't want to be there, or if you're just doing it for that week, it kind of comes across. If you're in a bad mood, it kind of comes across. And you may not be aware of it. But sometimes you can hear that stuff through the mic.
Season finale.
So my last podcast and that really is what I just said, is don't record when you're not feeling it, because it comes across. Like, change up your schedule, take a nap.
Take a nap.
Have a Snicker.
Have a Snicker. Go get you a McFlurry, which I suggest. Go get you an Oreo McFlurry with strawberry topping. The shit is lit. Make sure you add the strawberry topping.
You have me to strawberry topping. Peanut butter topping.
No, sis. No, see, that's why you can't suck no dick now.
Oh my god. I'm a flop.
That is a Murgatroyd.
Oh, such a fucking flop.
Okay.
It's okay.
It is okay. So we're gonna round it out with talking about pet peeves. Now, this is stuff that we just absolutely cannot stand hearing or whatever about a podcast that we're listening to. So I'm gonna double back to what John said earlier, and that is eating while recording. Now, let me preface this by saying, I know life. I know a lot of us are doing podcasts in addition to work, kids, marriages, funeral direction, whatever you do in your personal life, cosplay, whatever you do, the podcast is an addition to that. I understand that. I get it. And sometimes your schedule, you might be on the schedule. Shit, you might be like me, blood sugar be low, be like, bitch, I got to eat. However, be mindful of the fact that when you eat on the microphone, it picks everything up. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just eating. And I want to present this because I don't think a lot of people think of it this way. If you are the kind of person that does not like to hear somebody smack when they eat their food, that's what you're doing when you eat on the microphone. When you tearing chicken flesh with your teeth while you're in the middle of your show, that you're literally smacking in my ear. Like if you're gonna eat, be stealthy about it. Like shit, every now and then I'll be like, if I'm recording with somebody and I'm eating, I'm like, well, this real good mute, boop, and I'm,
Thank you.
I'm just saying, be cognizant of the fact that everything, and really, it doesn't really matter how good or bad your microphone is. The microphone will pick up pretty much everything. So when it grates my nerve now, and I've seen people complain about it, and other people be like, "Oh, I be eating with y'all. It's no big deal." And it's like,
stop it.
I get it. And if your audience, like if you put a survey out there and your audience really don't care, okay, fine. But I just feel like it's just good practice to not do that. Like try to eat around it, your podcast when you have to record, or just be a little bit more stealthy. Like it doesn't make sense to me if you recording your show and you over there slurping on soup. Like that doesn't make sense. If you're gonna eat, at least like eat a sandwich or something that's not loud.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Take small bites.
Don't be over there eating a bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios and you clinking on the damn bowl and shit. Like it's big. And the reason why I say that is because it's distracting.
It is.
Okay.
If I'm listening to your show and I'm trying to hear what you're saying, I'm distracted by you smacking. I'm distracted by the clinks. I'm distracted by all of that stuff. And that's just because I'm really trying to absorb what you're saying. I don't, because if I just want to have something playing in my ears, I'll listen to music. I'm not going to be listening to your podcast and things are going on in the podcast that distract me, because then I'm thrown off with the conversation because I was distracted by you smacking. And now I got to double back and be like, well, what did he say? And then I have to sit there and I have to have a come to Curtis meeting. And I'm like, do I really want to double back? No. Because now I have to hear that smacking again. Now I'm always going to hear that smacking.
Right.
And I may just be like, fuck it. So that's my first one, and I'm going to throw it to you guys before I round it out. So, Jackie, what pet peeves do you have?
My biggest...
As a listener. Well, you know what? Not just as a listener. As a member of the podcast community.
Okay. Well, my biggest pet peeve is if it's a podcast, like it's a duo or more, 2 or more people on the podcast. Of course, there's going to be things that's going to be said or by whatever parties. Maybe somebody didn't like it. Maybe somebody thought it came out this way or that way. I don't like the fact that certain said peoples only reach out to one person and go hit him up in his DM. Hit up everybody in their DMs or leave a freaking message on the SoundCloud.
They do.
No, they don't. I don't see nothing.
You don't check the SoundCloud.
Yes, I do. I do.
Well, here's the thing.
I know you can't control what people do, but what I'm saying is if I say something that came across a certain way or somebody felt it, whatever, they felt a certain type of way about it, why are you going to my co-host? Why aren't you coming to me or leaving it on the SoundCloud where I can respond to it?
People are weird. I don't know.
That's just my biggest pet peeve.
You think I want it?
That's like
it's a pet peeve of mine.
I know you over it.
I'm so fucking over it.
So
behind the scenes,
I'm so over. You know how over I'm so over being called a faggot every fucking week. For 2 years straight, it gets on my
That is so
fucking
crazy because I've never gotten anything negative. And my whole show
and it's always on SoundCloud.
Themed.
Like, this SoundCloud shit.
Yeah,
I'm a faggot, but you listening every week. Thanks for the listen.
Numbers.
Hello.
Check the numbers, bitch. Shout out to Maxwell.
But yeah, it's just like, God damn it.
But that's annoying to me because it's like, you know, if it's a collective crew, even with the pod panel, I know it's stuff that people hit you up in the DMs on certain pod panel episodes, and I'm just like, why don't
It's only Danny, and it's always about audio.
Oh shit! I don't know nothing about
And he
that.
would send it to the pod panel. He would DM the pod panel, and he'd be like, the audio sucks. And I'm like, well,
Okay.
that's all I got for
But
you.
anywho, I just say leave it on SoundCloud, or you hit all the parties, and you know, on the show up. You
I
know?
get it. Send it to the show email if they
Yeah,
have one, stuff like
exactly.
that.
So
I'm saying, you know.
I don't think we have a show
we
email.
not Jackie
I
and
don't
John.
know.
No,
I don't know y'all's
no.
tea, so.
No, we don't.
Okay, any other pet peeves?
As a listener, I think people should be mindful, especially like if you're a guest on somebody's show or whatever, and I'm listening to your show, you have to remember that you're a guest on somebody else's show. So you have to be aware of what you're saying, how it's coming across, etc., because you're a reflection. You know what I'm saying?
I get it.
And I've listened to certain, you know, shows of some of my favorite podcasts, and they had certain guests that I was just like, I didn't even finish listening to the show because I ain't saying it didn't make sense. All I'm saying is
It wasn't what you were expecting
Right,
when
yeah.
you saw that person was a guest.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense. I fully expect people to say that sometimes about my show, but I have had a shitload of guests, so you know, some are better than others, but I appreciate all my guests, and I think all of the conversations were dope. But,
Yeah.
you know, I can't.
I really like the religion episode. I just wanted to throw it out.
Oh, thank you. That was. I don't know how that came together. Shout out to Verdell.
That was a good episode. I listened to that
I
twice.
loved it because it was from a different perspective. Like, I've never talked or heard a conversation about religion from a openly gay,
Right.
black, theological scholar and former minister. You know what I mean? So, because the thing about that episode, and we're a little bit off topic, so ding, ding, ding. But anyway, the thing about that episode, just to give the listeners a little bit of feedback, and then because I pay attention and because I listen to podcasts, now I had recorded that episode, I want to say 2 weeks before it came out, but sometimes I backload and I'll because I'm flexible with my guests,
Right.
so sometimes I record weekly, and sometimes I may record 2 or 3 episodes in a week, and then I put them out. So that was what
Smart.
happened that week, and then I saw the next week that Kevin from the Outline, he did a show about religion, and I was like, you know, I was Raven Simone biting her teeth because I'm like,
I don't know.
and I even tweeted it. I mean, I was being funny because I had listened to the show, and I wasn't worried about people thinking that I had copied his idea because I knew that it was from a completely different standpoint. But it's just one of those things where it's like, life is just funny like that sometimes. You know what I mean?
Right. As a part of that podcast, Trinity, myself, Kevin, and Curtis,
Come on,
the
Trinity.
gay solo podcasters, the ones that do it great.
Ow.
I'm not doing a religion episode, so you guys won't be able to say I copied them because I'm not doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's the thing as a listener too. Like, understand that we're not all working from the same cosmic podcast book.
Right.
Like, I have no idea what Kevin's gonna do on his show from week to week. I have no idea what John's gonna do on his show from week to week. If we just so happen to cover the same thing, it is what it is. And the good thing about it is you should be hearing something different and taking something different from each, even if we're all doing the same thing. Or, I mean, the odds of me and John, unless he talks about something that happened in the world, but
I probably won't.
because I usually don't talk about a lot of pop culture,
Right.
you know what I mean? Whereas Kevin does, but he has a portion of his show where he just has conversation, you know. So and he might have a guest, and we may talk about the same thing. But again, I would not have, and I had those notes to do that episode about religion for like 10 months.
Oh wow!
But I didn't do it because I did not have the right person. I just let it sit. And so I started following him on Instagram, and he followed back, and he immediately hit me up and was like, "Hey, I'm a big fan of the show." He ran down his credentials, and I was like, well, shit, he well-rounded. My ass over here square as fuck. But anyway, you know, he was like, this is what I think I can bring. And I really, really, really appreciated that, the way that he presented himself. Because a lot of times I reach out to people because I already have an idea of what I want to talk about with you. And it's rare that I have somebody that reaches out to me with something already in mind. Okay. So I don't know why I just went into all of that, but it's good to know. It's a podcast episode, so y'all just got a little bit of behind the scenes about my last episode. So, John, what are some of your podcast pet peeves?
Not using words in the right context. Not using the right...
I'm good for that.
No. Not using words in the right context. Yeah. Smoke detectors going off during recordings. I'm not talking about you.
No, but how you gonna talk about smoke detectors when your phone be going off all through?
We're not talking about phones. We're talking about smoke detectors.
Okay, go.
You can change your smoke detector. I need to be able to keep in contact with people.
Okay.
Like apples and oranges.
Salads. Okay. I love you.
What else? Mr. Salvatore.
Another pet peeve is when you're when straight heterosexual podcasts veer down the road of being homophobic or misogynistic. And my thing is this: you have to understand a good portion of your audience is probably female, and a good portion of your podcast is probably homosexual. And for you to just have reckless abandonment when it comes to being misogynistic or homophobic, that is a huge pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on that a little bit, and then I'll let you get back to it.
Okay.
A pet peeve of mine is podcast. It is usually straight, like cis hetero podcasts. I know it's your podcast, and you're gonna say what you want to say, but if I kind of glean that you are not willing to have the conversations with those groups, like you always have something misogynistic to say, even if you don't think it's misogynistic, if you always start flying off the handle because something happened with a celebrity and you have all these things to say about the woman, but I kind of glean that you never bring women on the show in that aspect, or if you do, the conversation is kind of like something way different, and you're not having those conversations with those people. If you say things that are off about trans people or gay people or lesbians or people in the non-binary, but you never have a conversation with them, I'm gonna side eye. Yeah, because you're only presenting your worldview, and you are completely in your rights to do that. But the thing about it is, you're not fostering the whole thing about a podcast is to foster conversation. Exactly. You're having a conversation. You're presenting a conversation. But if you're speaking on things on people that you're not familiar with, and you're not willing to let them in on the conversation, it's hard for, like, the older I get, the harder it is for me to stomach straight men talking about women. And I'm like, so y'all not gonna ever have a woman in the mix to kind of challenge you? You don't want to be challenged on what you're saying. If you constantly have something sideways to say about gay people or trans people, and you never give those kind of people an opportunity to come on your show and challenge your views, I have to side. That's just me as a listener. I'm not saying you have to do it, because obviously it's your show. You giving SoundCloud her coins or whoever. You do what you want. I'm just saying, as a listener, those are things that I clock. So continue, John.
My last pet peeve, and I think I've said this on my show before: too long of an episode. If you are not the Baby Boy Podcast, I don't need to hear you for 2.5 hours. I don't need it. Keep it at an hour and 30 minutes, unless you have a riveting guest. If it's not that, and it's just you and your co-host, we don't need 2 hours. We don't need 2.5 hours. We don't need an hour and 46 minutes. We need you to go back to an hour and 30 minutes and keep it moving. And that's with the intro and the outro music.
I kind of agree. Although I'm in off kilter. Even this episode might be a little long, but the episodes run a little long when I have more than one guest. So it is okay. Okay. Some of my pet peeves: runaway conversations on themed podcasts. Like, unless y'all make it clear that is kind of like a grab bag or a wild card episode. Like if I'm expecting a certain structure and y'all are all over the place, it's hard for me to get into. I may skip that week. We get 10, 15 minutes in, and I'm like, I cannot.
I think we're doing better. Do you listen?
Y'all are doing better.
I
meant to
you.
have a conversation with John about that, but I forgot.
Thank you.
But that's just one of mine. Another one is, and I think John touched on this a little bit, like when the hosts are consistently, when they talk about topics and their details are wrong. And they give incorrect details. It's like you can tell that they didn't do any research. Now, we're all guilty of that. Sometimes you just want to get your hot takes off. But you have to be mindful, because especially when it comes to pop culture, because
that is my.
I'm not trying to be rude or mean, but you be out here looking the fuck stupid if you're talking about pop culture and your facts are wrong, because every other podcast is giving the right facts, and then here you come and your information is wrong, and it's like, did you not ask Siri to make sure you had the latest information?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things, because it's like, if this is what your show is about, and I'm feeling like you're not doing your proper research, it comes across kind of and it's not. I'm not trying to judge. I'm just, as a listener, these are things that I hear.
Right.
So if I've already listened to Baby Boy, I've already listened to The Read, I've already listened to Random Tandem, I've already listened to John, I've already listened to Kevin, I've already listened to all these podcasts, maybe touching on the same or similar topics, and then I'll hear another podcast and your details are way off. I'm like,
what the fuck?
What happened, sis?
That happened recently. I was like,
wait a minute. I'm listening, and I'm expecting that you're gonna say, here, I'm listening for key facts because I already know about it, or I've already heard about it on another podcast, and now I want to see what you're going to bring to it that's unique. And the details are wrong. It throws me off, and I'm like, okay, so what am I supposed to take from this?
thank you.
You know what I mean? Again, it's not trying to be mean. This is me as a listener. This is not me trying to throw shade as another podcaster. But again, I consume a lot of, even if I'm not tweeting or posting about it, because I've gotten, it's a little exhausting. Like, I try to show love as much as possible. I usually tweet out what I'm listening to, but I haven't been lately because I've just been tired.
Right.
It's just,
tired.
it's exhausting. But that doesn't mean that I'm still listening to y'all shows, even if you don't see me talk about it. And that's just one of the things. Another pet peeve of mine is inconsistency. And I'm going to be specific and say inconsistent releases after you get sucked into a show. Like, when I discover a show and I'm into it and I'm like, yes, bitch. Like, I got a new podcast that I know is going to be I have my Overcast broken down into my main podcast and my minor podcast.
Okay.
My main podcasts are the ones that I listen to every week faithfully. Well, that's a lot, because one of them I was like, I need a break. And then my minor ones are the ones that I may not listen to every week, but if it's something engaging, or if it's something that I'm interested in, or if I'm just curious to see what you have to say about it, I'm going to listen. And so if I listen to a brand new podcast and you make it into my main, and then you stop giving me my crack, I'm be upset.
Pepper and the salt shaker. Hello.
They got family now,
They've been had kids.
I know, but then one of them just have a baby before.
They always have babies.
But before they went on hiatus, though.
I know. They have not released since August.
I mean,
it doesn't
and then
matter.
the other thing I would say about that, like, if that is going to be something that happens, then, address it. Be like, hey, we're taking a break.
Did they?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Take a break.
John and I have had conversations, and he'd be like, if you want to take a break, and I'd be like, I'm like, because
nigga,
I
take
be
the
trying to, and he'd be like, nigga, take the break, and I'm like, but see, what had happened was, or what will happen.
You earned it when you hit it. I think I'm off kilter. Once you hit a year, you deserve to take a break, because if you've been very consistent, take a break. If you need to take 2 weeks off, take 2 weeks off. Shoot them links out for some throwback episodes to tie people over.
But like you said, if you're gonna take a break, tweet about it, post it on your whatever social media.
And
platform.
even if it's not if it wasn't planned, if it just came out of the blue, once you realize, okay, it's been a couple weeks, we haven't done a show, just be mindful of the people that are listening. Because I'm sitting here like,
What's episode?
I mean,
Listen, I ain't posted a YouTube video in months, but the last video I did, I let them know I'll be back.
and that's fair. I think that's
Right.
fair. Especially, again, and this, to me, it goes back to appreciating your audience. And I know I'm not trying to be mean or shady. I know people, sometimes we just don't think about those kind of things, which is part of the reason why I was wanting to do this episode. Trying to throw some of those things out that people may not necessarily think about. You know, when you take a break, when life starts lifing, because life gon' life.
Life gonna lie.
Yeah.
Life gonna lie.
Sometimes
Just
I
think
don't
about
know.
your listeners and be like, okay, we're not putting an episode out this week. Okay, shit going on. We may not shit. So, hell, I done got hit by a bus. Obviously, I ain't gonna put an episode out for the next 7 months.
Right.
I'm gonna let it be. Hey, you know what I'm saying? Now, again, life happens. It may be a couple of weeks, a month, maybe 2 before you get to it. But at some point, I think it's fair to expect podcasts that you listen to address if they're gonna be on hiatus, or if you up in the air about the show not going on, again, still be like we're on a break.
Indefinite hiatus.
We're on an indefinite hiatus until XYZ, and you never know. Shit, you may say that, and then people might come out and be like,
No,
I
but
will
we
come to your house and I will strap you to a chair. You gonna record. And it just, sometimes it gives you that boost that you didn't know you needed
Young Richard Gere.
from people that listen to you.
What you talking to me for?
So,
Young Richard Gere.
listen to y'all.
He knows who Young Richard Gere is.
I don't know her.
Okay, my last one, it may be a little controversial,
Oh
but
Jesus.
Is this a pet
again,
peeve?
yes.
Oh, God.
But it's, again, I listen to a lot of y'all's podcasts. And I've been trying to inject new ones, people that follow me on Instagram or on Twitter, and I'd be like, I don't know what this is. But that's another thing. Y'all need to make it easy so I can read what the podcast is about. If your bio doesn't tell me what the podcast is about, the likelihood of me listening to it is gonna be slim to shit. Because I want to know what it's about. If your bio is just, hey, we 3 kooky kids and we get drunk, and I'm like,
I love it. We see cookie kids and we
Yeah.
get drunk.
and I'm like, okay, but what is the podcast about? Like, why should I listen? So, here it is.
Oh, God.
Safari, no. Every friend, duo, and group thinking that they can do a podcast just because they enjoy their own conversations, it's not always meant to be. And I'm just being real. I understand that a lot of times the birth of a podcast is you sitting and you sipping on Moscato or whatever, your drink of preference, and you've talked to your friends and you be like, Self? And Self be like, I mean, we drunk, but what's up? And you be like, I mean, me and homegirl, we sit here and we just have some bomb ass conversations. The people need to hear this. And Self be like, I mean, that's cool. It may not be that. Because, and I think a lot of people are not honest, and they're not, number one, they're not listening to what they're putting out.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not honest and being like, just because I enjoy our conversations in private, that doesn't mean that it's translating onto this podcast. And that's just from a listener standpoint. Like I said, I listen to so many podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts with friend groups, and a lot of them work, but some of them don't. And it's just, if you're a conversational podcast and I don't feel like I'm sitting at the table with you, you kind of missing the mark. And that's not to say that you should not be doing a podcast at all. I'm sure people are going to go up for you and they're going to like what you're doing. But I would say a good measurement is if you're not getting growth, if things are not organically happening with that podcast, you may need to look in the mirror, Savannah, and figure out what's going on. I'm just, and that's just me. That's my opinion, unpopular podcast opinion, whatever you want to call it. I don't think everybody that has conversations with their friends that they enjoy, and that doesn't mean that y'all could be having deep philosophical conversations. Y'all could be like, listen, I just read this article about the 16 facets of the booty hole, and y'all could have a bomb ass conversation.
Right.
And then you get in front of the microphones and that shit dry as hell. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody. Maybe podcasting is not what you should be doing. Maybe you could do the same thing, but maybe it need to be in video format. Maybe we need to see the faces in order for it to translate.
Right.
But I just, I've come across a few podcasts in the past couple of months, and I'm just like, okay, y'all just, I get it. Y'all are two friends and y'all are talking, but I, as a listener, I'm not getting anything out of this. I don't feel like I'm at the table with y'all. I don't feel like I'm the third member of the podcast or the fourth or fifth or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just, and another my last pet peeve, and we're going to wrap this up because we're starting to run a little long, is, and this is just a personal thing because I'm so particular. I didn't even realize I was so particular until these past few months, and I was like, bitch, what the fuck? But podcasts with like 3 or 4 hosts and more than one host sound the same, it's very, 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 very difficult to get into that.
You mean the actual voices sound the same?
The
you can't
voices.
And you
We
can't...
talked. He touched on this before, so
Yeah,
yes,
I've touched on this before. Like, it's no secret that I feel this way because it's, if I'm new and I'm not familiar with you and your brand, and everybody sound the same, it's hard. So the reason why I say that is because that's something to think about in the inception of the podcast.
Right.
Like, the that was one of the things that I appreciated about the pod panel is that John, his voice is distinct. You know,
I feel it's kind of boring.
no, Sistren. Andrew had everybody was identifiable.
Yeah.
So if someone said, like, if I said something off the wall, y'all knew it was me.
I love it.
That was my voice. You know, if John is over here saying, "Don't judge me, judge your dick sucking stepmom," you know it was John because his voice was distinctive. So this is just something that I recently, in the past few months, realized. You know, like if everybody sounds the same, and then because that's another, like, a lot of people don't realize when you do a podcast with your friend, the 9 times out of 10 y'all are gonna have the same views on a lot of stuff. So if you sound the same, voice wise, and you sound the same,
right?
Like
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm.
If we agree on a lot of the same subjects.
We agree on, like, if we speak the same in voice and we speak the same in mind, then for me as a listener, I'll be like, you sound like 2, 3 of the same motherfucker, like,
right?
You know what I mean? And again, it's no shade. You know, if you get together with your friend, y'all Noah's Ark, and y'all want to do Noah's Ark the podcast, have at it. I'm just saying, as a listener, there's a lot. In this market, with there being so many podcasts, there's a lot more to be aware of. You know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, podcasting was not what it is today. So you could be a lot of things, and it could work. But now, there's a lot more to be cognizant of. Like, I'm hyper aware of so much stuff with this show. There's so much more that I want to do. There's so much that I think I could be doing better, and I just be like, do your best. Do your best. So anyway, you guys, anything else before we wrap this conversation up?
That's all I got.
I'm good.
All right. So we're going to do the last segment. Y'all are not off the hook. This is just going to have to be a long episode. But it's a Gemini episode. We got 3 Geminis on the mic. And we in person. Y'all have to understand, like, John, Jackie, and I have been rocking with each other. What, it's been like a year?
It's been a year.
It's been, I think it's been a year for us.
Yeah.
I want to say it's been probably a little bit more.
A little bit more.
Yeah, for y'all
I want to
too.
say like maybe.
And so we're meeting in person for the first time, and we're recording together, like all kinds of stuff.
Little.
It's pride. Let the titties
Let them out.
breathe.
Let them out. Boop.
Set them out. It's hard to yell with a nipple in your mouth.
Ew.
Okay, so we're gonna do the queer query and we're gonna get out of here because people need to eat and sleep and shit or whatever it is that you have to do.
Nigga, catch you got a shit.
Look at you.
Question.
The way this is gonna work, it's gonna be a little biting off of John's hot seat a little bit because we don't know the questions that we're gonna ask each other. So I'm gonna ask Jackie a question. I'm gonna ask John a question. And then both of you are going to ask me a question.
Okay.
I was so not ready for you.
Well, you're here, so get up.
I'm here.
So, John.
Okay. So,
you ready?
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready.
You need my sweat rag?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, on your show, I know that you've told stories about having your dick shitted on and vomited on.
Yes, I have.
My question for you is, have you ever had a guy cream on your dick? And if not, how do you think you would react if someone did?
Well,
Ray had stopped everything.
creaming is not a real thing, so I don't think I've ever had anyone cream on my dick because I really haven't been having sex in this new creaming phenomenon. So, with that, I don't believe in creaming.
So how would you react if someone was like, yeah, I cream or whatever?
You might have an infection and you might want to go to the clinic, or you may want to be on some type of antibiotic or some kind of cocktail, because what came out your butthole was not godly and it was not science related. It might have been a Rolade that you put Dr. Pepper in. And just,
Rolade? Are they still with us?
I don't.
Okay.
That's what I see when I see this creaming videos. I'm
And my
like,
ministry.
you let a Rolade just ooze out your butthole or whatever.
Anal sex ain't what it used to be.
It's not, because when I was actively having anal sex, there was not any creaming. It was either shit or blood. It was not any creaming.
Okay. So, Jackie.
I'm just saying.
Okay. You ready? You ready, love?
I'm gonna die. It's another 3 whole
I swear to God, it better not be.
It's not a 3-hole challenge. But close.
Oh. Y'all ain't shit.
I have to come
This
with a
ain't my-
hard-hitting question.
this ain't
It's
my
the queer
question.
query.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. If you were to be a porn star, what would your name be? And what style of movies would you star in? And the last part of that question is, would you embrace it and make a brand out of it?
Damn, there's multiple questions.
It is.
It's a queer query.
Okay,
It's 3-question challenge. It's the 3-hole challenge.
if I was a porn star, what would my name be?
If I were a porn star.
Jackie?
Jackie.
Jack.
That kind of has a ring
Jack
to
you?
it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Jackie? I don't know.
Jack me, Jackie. Okay.
Okay, Jackie.
Jack me, Jack.
I mean, it kind of rolls off the tongue.
My name's Jacqueline. So.
I mean, personally, I
You
wouldn't.
gotta sell it to me.
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't recommend putting your actual government name.
Oh
But-
yeah. I didn't see. That's the other.
But it's fine.
Just
Okay,
let
we
you know
rolling
that
off
I'm just not the girl for that.
So, what style of movies would you star in?
DP.
Oh my!
What?
Never mind. I was asking, would you do
Double
DP?
penetration, you gonna have 2 dicks in you?
And do a split on the
3-hole
dicks
challenge.
challenge.
What you gonna do, anal?
No.
Damn, Ray, you in the conversation now?
I mean,
I love you, Ray. Okay, so what would my specialty thing be?
Cum shots.
Ooh.
Bukkake.
No. I think
Nipple clamps.
no.
Coco.
I
Golden
think
showers.
I would be interested
In what?
ain't no shame here.
anal. Yeah.
Anal?
Anal. Yeah. I would be interested in anal.
Jackie gonna be creaming.
Oh.
If you do that, go see your doctor immediately.
Immediately. Don't let them niggas tell you otherwise.
Right.
You need to see a medical professional. You might have an irritant going on back there. Okay, so the last one, would you embrace it and make a brand out of it? Because some porn stars, like, they come out with lines of sex toys and, like, they
I
become a
would.
personality.
I would. I would make a brand out of it. I would embrace it and make a brand out of it.
Like, listen,
Ain't no coded names.
Fans only, or
Yeah,
what was it
yeah.
called?
OnlyFans. Listen, OnlyFans be lit if you find the right people. Okay.
Please text me those, because
Oh Lord, I love y'all.
Oh, I'm poor right now, but when I get back into the swing of things. Okay, so Jackie,
I need to change the name then, but go.
I'm gonna say you ask me your question first.
Oh, you want me to answer this? Okay, so Curtis.
Dun, dun, dun. Let's see.
So my question to you is, well, let me say this first. There are a lot of fine, handsome men in the potosphere. You know,
and some ugly ones.
Yeah, ugly ones too. But
Who's next on my face?
I need to stay on task with the ones that are very handsome, whether they be straight, whether they be straight or gay or what? Did I say something?
No, I just know.
let her ask the question.
Okay, so you know, we got our little pod squad or whatever, you know. But my question to you is, name 2 guys that you would do a threesome with within that potosphere, Potterin family, pod squad. Don't matter what their sexuality is.
Yeah, family may be a poor
Okay, well,
Pod, hashtag pods in color.
Pod-
Barry, I hope we're using it.
pod squad. Can we say squad? Pod squad.
I'm not touching that.
No.
Okay, well, let's just say, you know,
no problem.
any podcast that you're familiar with.
Okay. It has to be a threesome.
You and 2 other guys.
Oh God.
Shit, now I gotta roll through my mental
Yeah, go
Rolodex
through
of
your
podcasts.
yes. Please go through that mental Rolodex of yours, because there's some fine ones out there.
There are, but now I'm drawing a blank. Damn.
I'm just waiting for this answer.
You
Go.
done made me
Spicy.
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 Okay. I would say if I had to do a threesome with podcast peers, it would be Kevin, Dwayne, and
Kevin.
Charnel.
Ooh.
Because I like a little bit of everything. So I like what Kevin brings to the table, and Charnel is like tall and solid. So I'd be like, shorty swing my way. Show look good to me. You know. Now, this in no way means that I will be hopping in nobody's DMs or nothing like that, because y'all know I'm a non-practicing gay. However, I was just answering the question.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
John, what's your question?
My question for you.
What you got?
What is the next phase of Gayside Stories?
The next phase, and it should be pretty clear or obvious. The next phase for Gayside Stories this summer is going to be the gay culture series.
Mm-hmm.
Something different that I'm doing. And then after that, I probably want to say this fall, I'm going to do a whole culture series. So I think the next phase is to have some kind of themes
Okay.
going across multiple episodes, which is really kind of a throwback to you with the hot seat.
That's what's up.
So
a live show in the future.
Face.
And who is going to pay for it?
I am sure there will be some sponsors that would.
I mean, you never know. Maybe. I don't feel like my listenership is where I personally want it to be.
You could go on a tour.
I have an idea. If
What's
you're
your
open
idea?
to it. Like
Like a bar?
it's Gay Pride Month, right? This is Gay Pride
It
Month,
is.
and they're having like so many different
Too short.
events. No, I'm just saying there's so many different events here, but I was saying you can, you know, kind of network and pick an event that you really want to kind of focus on and be a part of,
Actually, that's
and
some thought.
send people clips of some of your favorite shows or whatever, and say, hey, I would like to have a live show at your event, and see what they say.
Yeah.
That would be kind of dope.
I would
dope.
go. I would come out here for a live show. If Curtis said I'm doing a live show, I'm coming.
So, if I were to do a live show, I feel like it would probably be a panel, and I would probably try to get some of my faves to be on the panel with me.
Who would be your faves on the panel?
You already asked your question.
Well, this is a sidebar question.
I mean, this is just, I'm literally shooting off the hip with this, but like I could see maybe if how would I do it? Like I would definitely, like there are certain people that I would definitely want to be involved. Like I would be like, okay, I'm doing a live show. I want John to sit up there with
that'd
me.
be awesome.
You know, I may reach out to Kevin and see if he can do it. I may reach out to whoever else and be like, hey, I'm doing a live show. I would love to have you on the panel. Let's see if we can work it out. But again, we live in a capitalist society. Things cost money. You know, it may be, hey, I want you to do it, but if we don't have the budget to fly you out, so it would be on your own.
Right.
You know, I may be like, now if you want somewhere to stay, you can crash on the couch or whatever. Right. But I may not be able to. You know what I mean? So my main thing.
It could be intimate.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I don't need to be trying to sell out arenas or nothing like that. But if I were to go the live show route, number one, I would want my listenership to be at a certain place, and that's just me personally, because again, I'm very particular about my show, and I would want people to be involved. Like I may even do like a rotating panel and be like, okay, for this segment, I'm gonna have this person, and now I'm gonna move into this part of a conversation, and now I'm gonna bring out this person. I'm gonna have these two people for this. I may close out the show with the quick query, and I want it to be zany. I want it to be over the top. I want it to be everything. So I'm gonna have John on that part. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I think that's how I would do it. But and the other thing, because I've thought about this and people have presented it to me before, and it's the last thing, and we're gonna wrap it up. Okay. Is there doesn't necessarily have to be a rush for it, and that was something that I had to learn for myself. Like it doesn't have to be a rush to get 1,000 listens per episode or to get a live show. Like everybody's journey is different. Like there's a podcast that I listen to, and I'm going to their live show this September if I can work it out. They've been doing their show for 8 years, and they're doing their first live show. Oh wow! You know what I mean? Whereas other shows, like obviously the Read and the Friend Zone and stuff like that, they have it's different for everyone. Like even another podcast with my friend Jade and XD, Jade and XD, the podcast. I remember hearing that, and it's something that plays in my head a lot. Is that they were like, it took us 2 years before we were popping. You know what I mean? Like everybody's not popping out the gate, right? And I struggle with my show sometimes because I'm like, I don't know how sustainable it is. I don't know if I have enough ideas to keep it going for however long. But one thing I do know is while I still have ideas, I'm like, I still have work that I want to do. Makes sense. So for the time being, the show's still gonna come out. There's things I want to do. There's some LGBT authors that I want to get on. There's a rapper that I might get on. You know, a gay rapper.
Is he cute?
There's conversations that I want to have with different kinds of people. I had one of my trans friends on, but I want to go down that route again. Okay. I recently had a trans man follow me on Twitter, so I don't remember.
This is cute stuff.
So I'm gonna slide at his DMs because I don't feel like trans men get enough shine.
They don't.
Right.
So I want to bring a trans man onto the show, and that's what I say. Like the tagline of the show, this is where the gay shit goes. But and me as a gay host, and a lot of my guests are gay men, but this show, I still want it to be for everyone, and I want to hear those other voices because there's topics that I want to talk about. But just like I was saying earlier, I don't want to have conversations about trans people and them not be a part of the conversation. Exactly. So I want to bring those people onto the show. Some people, I've reached out and they're a little shy. They're like, let me get into it. So I will say, while I still feel like I have work to do, I'm going to keep doing the show. And I'm going to say this is a challenge for my listeners. Spread the word, help the listenership get up.
Yes.
Post on your Instagram that you're listening to the show. Retweet on Twitter. Post on your Facebook. Help me get the word out there. And be interactive. Like, tweet that you're listening to the show.
Gayside Pod, hello.
Hashtag Gayside Pod. If there's something that you hear or a guest, if you want somebody to be on the show, you can tweet or email or whatever. Like, I'm so that's one of my goals, is to figure out how I can make this a more interactive show. Because I have more listens than I ever expected to get, and I'm not.
You're killing it.
I'm not acting like I'm just killing it, but
you are.
Where I set expectations and they've exceeded, but there's still, I don't have the engagement that I would like.
Right.
So
You're still hungry. That's good.
Right. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, what can I do so that my listeners will engage every week? What can I do? What can I present so that if y'all want to send letters, like, is that something that listeners want me to do? Like, do y'all want me to talk about letters? Do y'all want to?
I can see you doing it. I can see you doing it. And that would work.
Send, because one of my things in my head with this show is I feel like this can be a voice for everybody. So if you have a shitty ass Jack date, you can send that in, and I'll read about it on the show, and I may offer some quips, and I may have something shady to say.
I'll be doing that.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to send in your story, you don't want to be on the podcast necessarily, but you want to send in your, like, those are things. So I want to figure out how I can get my audience to engage more. So if y'all have some ideas, tweet me, email me, whatever. So let's reach the next level. Like, I am still hungry. I do still want to reach the next level.
And that's good that you are hungry at a year, because some people coast and some people fall off, and you have this.
It's hard out here in these podcast streets.
It is.
Ooh, everybody ain't able. All right, you guys, this is a supersized episode, but I think it was good. Hopefully you guys got a lot of good information, and if you're thinking about doing a podcast or you're doing a podcast, hopefully you got something out of it. And it wasn't just a shade fest. I don't think it was, but can't control how people internalize things. So, first and foremost, I want to extend a huge thank you to Jackie and John.
Thank you for having us.
Not only being on the show, but for kind of making me a priority and us meeting and being in each other's faces, and I get to see Jackie's titties in person. I get to see John's cheekbones in person.
PTJ.
I get to see Ray in person. So I'm very appreciative. Like, I don't take it lightly that you guys, came and
highlight of my weekend
and conquered, and we had a good time. We had a good chat. So, Jackie, tell people where they can find you.
Hey y'all, hey, it's your girl, I'm Just Jackie. You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm_just_Jackie. Or go to my website, ImJustJackie.com. And all my social media handles are there.
John?
You can find me one of three places: Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at The John Effect. If you're on ChristianMingles.com, you can find me under the username PlumSmuggler83.
And you can find them on Jacked.
And on this
And Grinder.
Thank you.
Yes.
You want to see me on my knees?
Yes. Wasn't that fun? Oh, I had such an awesome time with John and Jackie. Hopefully things didn't get too shady. It wasn't my intent to shade any particular podcast or anything like that. I didn't have any in mind when I was talking about things. I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for John or Jackie. Also, I don't want anyone to think that I was trying to step on any toes. I know that Barry over at Podcast in Color has her podcast about podcasts. It wasn't my intent to do that, but I did have a lot that I wanted to kind of get out about podcasts, because I do listen to so many, and I've been doing this for over a year. Not that it gives me some grand license, but I had something to say, and it's my show, so I did that. So with that being said,
Remember, guys, GaysideStories.com is the hub for more information. Everything you want to know about the show, all of the links, everything is there. You can email me if you have something to say, if you want to be a guest on the show, if you want me to be a guest on your show, if you have any suggestions for topics or maybe some type of series that I can do, if you just want to kind of contribute to the show, feel free to email me. You can also follow and interact on social media, like the Facebook page. All of those links are in the show notes. Make it easy. Subscribe, you guys, wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't already, again, I've run down all of the places you can find the podcast. It's about 9 different places. I hope that I am maximizing effort. Shout out to Deadpool in getting the podcast out so that it's available. So number 1, you can listen to it, and number 2, you can share it with your friends. And check out some of the other things that I have going on. Like I say, the short stories, the blog, which I don't know if anyone's caught it, but I've renamed the blog to #GaysideNews. The Sounds of the Story playlist, all of those different things, all housed under the same umbrella. Again, you can go to the website for all of those links. Again, I want to thank you all so very much for listening to this show. You do not have to. You could be listening to anything else. There's so many podcasts. I know that I am not that one unique fish in the podcasting pool to the point where it's like I am a one-stop shop for whatever you're looking for. But I do appreciate you taking the time to listen to my show. Hopefully you're getting something from it. And if not, let me know. Maybe you can help me improve. With that all being said, you guys, have a happy Pride Month. Be safe. Do what you want. Shake your ass. Be political. Do whatever it is that is on your heart. And one more thing. My birthday is next week. My birthday is on June 9th. And it would be amazing if you guys would go and leave a review on Apple Podcasts and make sure you share the show on your Twitter or on your Instagram or on your Facebook as a gift to me. I would be very, very appreciative. Again, my birthday is on June 9th. If you want to do something for me, share the show, tag me in it so I can see it, and just make my day. So that's going to wrap this up. I will see you guys next week. Have a great one.